Hi there. My name is Greta Ehrig, and I am a songwriter living and working in the Washington, D.C. area. Before I tell you about my process of writing Music of the Spheres, I would like to thank David Adams, the founder of The-Acoustic-Guitar-Project. And also, I'd like to thank Suzanne Brindamore and Mike Ryan, the co-coordinators for the DC area project. On Friday, October 13th, 2017, I received the guitar from Gary Mitchell, another locally based singer-songwriter, and it was the first time we had met, and we swapped a couple of songs, which was just a really fun way to start off the project, but also very inspiring because Gary's songs that he shared with me are incredibly positive and uplifting. So I sort of felt like, I just felt very uplifted and positive, and I have a feeling that that energy influenced the direction of the song that I moved into that week. The guitar by Minor Bird is really a sweet little guitar. It has great tone, it holds its tuning really well, and it smells amazing. It smells to me like being in New Mexico, out on a mesa, or like around the Ponderosa Pines. It just has this incredible, wonderful, earthy outdoors smell, which reminded me of being in nature, and so I think that that also influenced my song. Well, what else did I want to say about that? Yeah, well, the guitar does not have a pick guard for when you're picking with a pick, a plastic pick. And so I didn't feel comfortable, doing it like a heavy strumming piece on the guitar. So I think that that also influenced the direction of the song in terms of becoming a finger-picked song. I kept the guitar in standard tuning and composed in the key of D, in part because I don't think I've ever done a standard tuning D song before, D major, and in part because I liked the way it was dipping down into the low E string on the chorus, and because it was just a nice little kind of nod to the Irish ancestry of my subject, which happens to be, as you may have figured out by now, happens to be the great 20th century American artist Georgia O'Keeffe, also known as the mother of American modernism. In the month leading up to my week with the guitar, I spent a lot of time reading about and studying O'Keeffe's life and work and her paintings, drawings, and sculptures. About 3 weeks before I got the guitar, I spent some time at the National Gallery of Art, where they have 4 of her Jack in the Pulpit paintings, and sort of had this wonderful experience there in the gallery around those paintings. And here are some reproductions of those paintings. As you can see in these first 2 paintings, they're somewhat representational, somewhat realistic. But over time, she moves on to more abstract forms, just really playing with line and color and shading and shape and movement and vibrations of the colors. I'm particularly fond, I don't know if you can see it in this image, but there's a cadmium red stripe right through here that I just think is so beautiful and surprising and mysterious. So yeah, being inspired by that visit to the National Gallery, when I received the guitar, I started noodling around a little bit, and I sat down and I wrote a long poem called Wideness and Wonder, about my experience of these 4 paintings. I actually really, really enjoyed the direction that that poem went in. Somewhat narrative, somewhat edgy, a little bit political. But I found that trying to set it to music just wasn't working for me. And performing it, trying to perform it into my little cassette recorder was not working for me. I found that the lines were a little too wordy and long, and that the rhymes were spread out too much for it to kind of have the interplay that I was looking for. So I decided to kind of can that or try over again. So later that night, I ended up switching gears a little bit and doing this sketch, which you may sort of see the influence of Georgia O'Keeffe in the sketch. I borrow pretty heavily from one of her pieces called Music Pink and Blue 2. But then I have my own sort of crazy little stuff going on in it as well. Anyway, the next day I got up and started writing again, and this time I found the lyrics to the song. The first verse is heavily influenced by this Music Pink and Blue 2 from 1919. As you can see, well, not only is it about that, it's, you know, sort of an ekphrastic piece, meaning a description of or writing about other art. But it also sort of influenced the first verse in that I was aiming for a little bit more abstraction, less narrativeness, and in some senses even less lyrical sense. Just kind of allowing images and forms, shapes, and images to kind of bubble up on their own and stand on their own. I probably could have taken that in an even deeper abstract direction than I did, but I feel pretty happy with the way that it came out. And yeah, the ekphrastic part of it is kind of fun. I sort of just like the idea of writing a song about a piece of art that's about a song, you know, and just sort of like that meta connection there. And then the second verse relates to Georgia O'Keeffe's actual presence, to her body, to her hands, as portrayed in the photography of Alfred Stieglitz and Ansel Adams. I compare her hands and those images of her hands to the branches of the Lawrence tree, which is this painting she did of looking up a pine tree into the night sky. Also one of her southwestern pieces. In the third verse, I was influenced by the art philosophies of Arthur Wesley Dow and also by Georgia O'Keeffe's skull and bone paintings. In the 40s, she did a lot of paintings of bones she had found out on the desert, bleached white by the sun, and had an interplay between those and the sky. Personally, I think it's really interesting that there's so much similarity between these paintings and the music, Pink and Blue, because they were from very different parts of her life, but there's a lot of similarity between them, even though one's really abstracted and the other ostensibly is, you know, portraying bones, concrete object. Let's see. The chorus and the bridge were more of a meditation on the harmony found in nature and the cycles of the seasons. O'Keeffe apparently was very influenced by Zen Buddhism, and so there's some of that in there as well. Anyway, that's basically my process for writing this particular song. One of the biggest challenges of the week was finding time alone to write and record the song, and so I ended up spending a bit of time in my car, which I like to imagine O'Keeffe would have really approved of, because she did many of her southwestern masterpieces in New Mexico out of her Ford. So I like that connection there between us. And one of the biggest delights in this process of the week for me was the sense of motion that came out of the really short little lines, the little rhyming couplets that I wrote, you know, kind of moving back and forth, having those little connections between them and then moving on to another rhyme, just gave it a nice sense of undulating motion that I think is reminiscent of O'Keeffe's own work, and I like that sort of dialogue. So I think that's about it. This video is about twice as long as the actual song. I hope you found it interesting. And now that I have shared with you what brought me to this song and what brought this song to me, I just want to say that I hope you will give the song another listen and hear all of the wonderful things in it that only you can bring to it. So thank you so much for listening and for sharing if you're also an artist on this site, and for anyone out there trying to make the world a more beautiful place. We need that.